I did.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Let me try that again. Okay. Hi, everybody, and we're really glad to have you here today. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes throughout this, but my lips and all of that. This is my first time doing this, so I'm very excited to have you on my inaugural journey. And Nathalie has been, gracious enough to be my guinea pig, my fabulous guinea pig through this process. I will owe her big time when this is done. So
Mhm.
I am Rachel Burr. I'm the author of the book Butterfly Goo, The Down and Dirty Truth of Transformation. And today we have Nathalie Davis, who is going to share with us her own journey through the goo. So welcome, Nathalie.
Thank you, Rachel. And I can't wait to figure out how you're going to pay me back. I think this is going to be payment enough. So thank you for that, Rachel. Appreciate it. Hi,
You are so
everybody.
generous.
My name is Nathalie Davis. I am the owner and founder of NLD Coaching and Consulting. I do executive coaching and I specialize in workplace trauma and workplace abuse, trying to end this horrible thing that has really become prevalent nowadays, and that is bullying in the workplace. So, after having gone through a couple of issues like that myself, this is where my new life is going, and I'll probably talk about that a little more as Rachel and I talk later this afternoon. So, thanks, Rachel, for again for having me here.
Absolutely. Love it, Nathalie. And of course, I think you're fabulous. So,
Thank you.
So going off the theme of the
Yeah.
book, The Butterfly Goo,
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about what maybe was a transformational or a big change experience that for you was especially gooey.
Wow. So the biggest change for me is having transitioned from the long term corporate girl. I had been in corporate for a long, long time, then transferred to nonprofit. And it got to the point where it's like, I just don't think I could do this anymore. But after being in a certain environment for a long, long time, which is really that working environment, it is really hard to change going from that kind of work life to an entrepreneur life, and that got really gooey. I did everything that corporate wanted me to do. Right, I got the degrees, I got the certifications. I was a person that took their laptop on vacation with them, which I don't recommend anymore to anybody. All of that, and transitioning from that into work from home, have your own schedule, and also being a little afraid of, gee, next Friday, I won't have a paycheck because my paycheck has to come from me and I don't have any clients yet. So that whole transition period, it's been probably almost the last 4 years when I started thinking about it to now, it was really gooey. And I still have a little bit of goo left. I am not the blossoming butterfly yet, but that's probably been my biggest transition other than becoming a mom, and that's a different kind of goo all in itself. So we won't go there. But
We get
yeah,
to go, yeah, we get to go wherever your goo takes us. I'm
okay.
curious, as you're trudging through some of that, I love that acknowledgement, and I went through corporate myself. I think you probably even did a better job of transitioning than I did. All the goo.
I don't know. We
I
have
don't
a lot.
know.
It's a
Um,
lot.
were there any particular situations or, and obviously you can change names to protect the guilty,
Sure.
but
No,
any
no problem.
particular situations that really showed up for you as being especially icky, sticky, gooey?
I think it was the time that I decided I was done. That was one part. And it was actually during COVID. So I was the head of HR during the COVID time. And if any of you were in kind of an HR space or any kind of working space at a corporate location, you know how hard that was. I was working in a 24/7 operation, and all the things that you had to do the testing, you had to take your temperature, you had to write it down, and in our state you had to notify the state, and send them all the logs that you had. And finally it got to the point where I just said, this is not what I want. And when you get to where you see managers aren't happy because employees aren't coming in, Employees are mad because the managers are asking them to come in, and leadership is mad because nobody was happy. And
Yeah.
although it's not my job to make people happy, it was really hard to keep everybody from being just miserable. And
Yeah.
after doing that for so long, it was like it was time to go. So I think that was the gooeyest time for me. Is just really saying it's time to take a different direction in my career and maybe be my own boss where I'm not trying to please everybody. Because back
Yeah.
in those days, I was a people pleaser, big time. So, how do I keep this person going? How do I keep this person motivated? How do I keep this team engaged? And it was like, whew, I'm done. So, that was really the particularly gooey part, is just kind of saying, I'm done. And so, when I wrote that letter of resignation, it was scary. I was on the phone with my best friends till about 2 o'clock in the morning that previous night going, what do I do? What do I do? And thank goodness I had them there for me, because, there were tears, because, you're
Yeah.
transitioning, and it's not necessarily the happiest time, but deep in your gut you have to do it. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it. And the next day went into my boss's office after a lovely team building event, unfortunately. And Kevin said, I'm done. I'm done. I just need to do something else. And that was it. That was it. So that was the biggest transition. And then there are other gooey parts too, when
Yeah.
ask your questions though, and I can
You
expound
can
upon
talk.
them a little bit more. Otherwise, I'll just keep
No,
chatting.
I love it. And one of the things I think is so important and resonates with me is this idea of you just feel something in your gut, right? That
Yes.
deep down, it's like, I know this is the right thing to do. And we can
Yeah.
ignore that for quite a while because it's like, no, no, that sounds hard. No, no,
Yep.
it's scary. And it's like, but there is something in you that says, you need to do this.
You, absolutely. You just know. And when you wake up and you're just laying there, if anybody watches memes, I know I'm addicted to some of these, social media sites. And they say, you wake up and it's 6 o'clock and you sit on the side of your bed, and then you look over at the clock and it's 8:15 and you've done nothing but sit on the side of the bed. That's kind of how I was feeling, like nothing is motivating me to get up and do
Yeah.
anything. And that's really when you feel it, like this just isn't the right thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, because you were one of the people who were gracious enough to be an
Yeah,
early reader for me on my
yeah,
book.
yes, it was fabulous.
Thank you. And I did not pay her to say
Nope, not at
that.
all, not at all.
So as you were reading the book and you come with your own transformational
Yeah,
experiences, what parts resonated most with you or what really stood out for you?
there were a couple of things that stood out for me that actually kind of weren't even work related. So, you had mentioned in your book some of the taking care or working with your brother,
Hmm.
and some of the situations that you had trying to get him to a place where he was good, and getting him to a place where, yep, he can be out on his own and things like that. And I actually have a similar situation. I have my sister that lives with me, and I have two sons that are on the autism spectrum that also live with me. And so trying to get all three of them to a point, not necessarily that they'll be on their own, because they probably won't be at some point, but to the point where they can manage, and having lists and things to do. Like, here are the things that you have to do. If the basement is leaking, here's the number, here's the plumber, and make sure that you just have those things detailed. But then there also becomes a point where you know that you can't be an enabler anymore.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that really stuck out for me. And I think another thing is, it's all not like this. Your trajectory from a change is not like this. The butterfly goo, it's pretty straightforward. You know how it's going to go. It's going to be, they don't talk about, okay, when you go down and you go back up, and when you go down and you go back up. And there were times, I admit that, from going back to the work world, that I thought about, well, maybe I should go back, and see what it's like, and have that steady paycheck again. And that was because of self doubt.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
that was one of the things that you talked about. Is it me? Do I really have it?
Yeah.
Maybe I thought too big of myself. Maybe I really don't have all of those capabilities because, again, when we talk about the people pleasing, it
Yeah.
is proving yourself all the time. And
Yeah.
you really have to take time to prove yourself to yourself.
I love that. Yeah.
So,
You have to take the
uh,
time to prove yourself to yourself.
yeah. Yeah. And so I think that was probably, those were a couple of things too. You're trying to manage your own life, you're
Yep.
trying to help others, and you're trying to accomplish other things too in between all of that. And so later on, I'm pretty sure we'll talk about this thing called the dissertation that I have been
No.
working on. And boy, oh boy, is that good too. And I know you shared your dissertation story, and I have one as well.
Or
But
my lack thereof is what
okay.
that's what mine is.
But yeah, I mean, when I was reading part of this, is like, oh my gosh, Rachel is living my life vicariously. And we just met like 3 years ago, and she knows my life. It's kind of scary.
Well, I think that's what shows up. And I was talking to someone the other day who'd also listened
Yeah.
to a different podcast
Yes.
about the book. And he's like, oh my gosh, that happened to me too. He's like, that's so relatable. And I think that's the piece through all of this that we have, we can have very different journeys and very different lives, but there are these things that we go through, especially when we
Hmm.
go through this goo, we go through these transformational processes that
Yes.
we feel we can empathize with each other, we can hear, what's going on with each
Yes.
other, and we have this sense of knowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You just kind of know and you connect. And I think that's how Rachel and I connected. It was just through a general meeting that we had in I would say, a web meeting
Kind of a
place.
networking group. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a networking group, and we just kind of hit it off when we had a breakout room, and it's like tapping each other in chat. Hey, would you ever just like to chat sometime afterward? And this friendship that we have now has blossomed, and so I feel very blessed that this has come out of just having someone to network with.
Me too. And I think one of the things I like to talk about is the whole idea of building your village. Because in the best of times, we need friends, we need family, we need people who understand us and who will support us. And
Yes.
in these gooey times, we even more need that village to support us. And I think, and it's so interesting, I don't know how you feel, but some of the times when I felt the most stressed or the most kind of immersed in the goo, and I feel
Mhm.
like I'm using that word too much. I am promoting the book, but so
That's what you're supposed to
I
do.
know. So in those moments, it was actually the time I was least likely to reach out because I was embarrassed. I was
Mhm.
like, I thought, oh my gosh, it's just me. Like you were saying, it's like, the confidence or
Yeah.
the willingness to believe that I could do something. And so instead,
Yes.
just kind of stuffing it away and not wanting to look at it. And the problem is
Mhm.
those times when we need people the most is a lot of times when we pull back into ourselves and don't reach out.
Boy, you again, you are mirroring me very much. I am an introvert by nature. And so when we get into those tough times, you're absolutely right. We tend to go back, or you start reading more, studying more. And that's kind of my fallback.
Yeah.
I start to try to find ways to continue to improve. And not that you should never do it, but
Yeah.
again, it was that possible proving. Maybe I should get a coaching certification. Oh, maybe I should get certified in this particular, performance management tool, or maybe I
Yeah.
should get this. And it's like, you don't need that anymore. Who are you trying? You have so much experience and life experience, and being, let's just say, north of 50, you have gained enough knowledge working in the real world to say, I know how to handle that, and I don't necessarily need a piece of paper to show that anymore. And that's
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest things. It's like, nope, you got this. You
Yeah.
got this already. So go
Yeah.
out and do that. You don't need to necessarily stay away from people. That's probably when you should get out and say, boy, I need people even more, and let's go out and
Yes.
use it. Yep,
Absolutely. Yeah, we can be our biggest critics and we can be our
yes,
biggest champions. And
absolutely.
I'm voting for the moving towards the champion,
Yay.
piece, like all of
Yes.
us. And I
Yes.
think the other thing, and I don't, because I don't want to backtrack too much, but something you
That's
said
okay.
really resonated with me was the idea of, kind of when my brother was living with me, and you've got folks living with you, and at the time I was looking at it as, okay, how can I help, right?
Yes.
And what can I do to support? And what I found actually in the process is I probably learned as much from him as he did from me.
Yeah.
And I think there's this opportunity sometimes to think not only what can I do to mentor and teach, or what is it I have to learn also. And the reverse, some people think that they don't have anything to teach and they just look for more to learn. And it's both ways. We always have something to learn.
Yes.
And what is it we have to teach someone, the world, whomever? And I'm curious, as you're going through what we were talking about with your family,
Yeah.
what have you been learning in this particular experience for yourself?
Wow. So my oldest son, also, on the spectrum, is an extreme extrovert.
Mm,
And he goes out, he'll talk to anybody. He is one that is just, the one that's going to be your cheerleader all the time. And he has been the one that has taught me to persevere.
mm,
Like there are days when you're just like, I'm not going to work today. I just don't feel like it. And he's a big guy. So my son is about 6'5", maybe about 330 pounds. And so not only does he mentally tell me you need to get back to work, he physically like picks me and walks me across the hall from my room to my office. He sits me right down here. He goes, "You can do this. Can I make you some coffee?" Like,
Oh.
no, I don't need any coffee, honey. But he goes and makes it anyway. What do you need? You can go out there. You're smart. And so here's this guy, this beautiful big boy of mine, telling me, being my coach at a time
Yeah,
when I needed, like, yeah, I'm not feeling it today. Nope, we're going to get you up. We're going to sit you down and you're going to work, whether that's on the dissertation or the business.
yeah.
He is there. And he's the one that really teaches me perseverance
I
and
think
keep
that's
going
fabulous.
and just do your best, mom. And, he was the one that, how are you going to advertise? And I'm like, oh, I might do some Facebook, things like that. He happened to take a stack of my business cards and he works in our local mall
Yeah.
and he kind of passed them out. Not anything I would do. I haven't gotten any business for that, but he still felt that entrepreneurial thing, like, I'm going to help. And this is something my mom won't do because she's too quiet. And he just kind of handed them out. Now, you never know whether it ends up in somebody's hands by accident or anything like that, but he wasn't afraid. That's the thing. He's not
Yeah, he's
afraid.
not
He
afraid.
challenges me not to be afraid.
I love that. So, all right. So, if you think about all your transitions, whether,
Yeah.
your transformations, your
Yeah.
change, whether it's, kind of working with your family, leaving
Yeah.
corporate, whether it's the dissertation, which is
Mhm.
coming along now,
Yes, it is. It's much
lots of
better now.
energy.
Yes.
So, if folks are out there listening and they're either already on their journey or they're
Yeah.
thinking about embarking on their own change and
Yeah.
transformation journey,
Yeah.
what do you want them to know?
I think it's best to know that there is no time limit in transformation. I think, if you're a high performing person and people that, are whatever field that you are in, if you're high performing, you always feel like you have to perform.
Yeah.
You always have to be doing something. And there is no time limit. I almost equate it a little bit to grief
Oh, yeah.
because some people say, give yourself time, don't rush it, work through it. There are going to be ups and downs. And it's the same with the transformation. Transformation is hard, you know,
It's,
it is. And you're
yeah.
going to lose a little bit of yourself because you're kind of giving up something. So for me, it was giving up 25 years of working in HR. And how is that going to be different? Well, I thought about when I went into HR the first time, I was one of those odd people because this doesn't happen very often. I wanted to be an HR professional because my thing was helping people, helping them develop, and helping them grow. by coming out of HR, I'm still doing the same thing, just doing it in a very different manner through the coaching, through public speaking, through whatever. And it's still taking some time, from the time I left the world into the, right now, the corporate world. There were times that I just kind of thought, all right, can I try something? Can I speak publicly? And, you got to
Yeah.
go out there and try that the first time. And there are probably days now that I feel much more confident than in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Even that first year of being an entrepreneur, you're not making a whole lot of money because
Mm-mm.
you're out there networking and you're
Yep.
out there doing that. And I will tell other people this too. Not everybody, because you'll get ads like this, will say you can reach $100,000 in 3 months with this particular method that I use. If it were true, it's like losing weight. Nope, you got to stick with it. So
Yeah.
on those days where it's like, okay, what do I do now? Just stick with it, and be prepared though. Like I didn't just leave and say, I quit today. I knew
Yeah.
I had reserve of money to be able to financially sustain myself and my family for a period of time. You need to
Yeah.
be prepared. But that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. Don't put a time limit on yourself because you're never really going to stop growing, but
Yeah.
you do have that time to change.
Absolutely. I love that. And, it's funny too, when you said that, it reminds me of kind of going through the change journey. Well, the many, like I said,
Yes,
you know, the caterpillar gets one butterfly, but inside all of our butterflies is another hungry caterpillar.
sure, sure.
But looking back now and remembering what it was like to be on the other side of the change before, now it seems
Mhm.
like, of course, you're going to do that. But going back into who that person was, and by that person, I mean me or you,
Yes.
at that point in time, and it
Hmm.
does feel like you were a different person.
Yes,
One could argue we were, right?
we were.
And you
Yep.
look at the slog that's ahead of you and the unknown and going into it and finally getting to the other side, or at least getting back, your feet back on some kind of solid ground.
Yes.
And you can look back at that and it doesn't look scary anymore. It doesn't have the same power. And it's kind of this feeling of like, wow, glad that's over.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do go through the wow, what happened? Or when did you have that moment when you woke up that morning and said, okay, I feel good and I don't feel scared. There are
Yeah.
days when you get up and it's like first you wake up and you're scared or you're nervous or you're unsure. And then you wake up for a while and then it's like, okay, I had a cup of coffee already and I didn't feel scared until I got to my computer, right?
Yeah.
Or then I didn't get nervous until I had that first phone call with a potential client, right?
Yeah.
And so the scariness even subsides along the way.
Yeah.
So from day one to day this, it's very different. It takes practice, it takes perseverance, it takes
Yeah.
endurance. But just like you said, it's a good transformation, and you will see transformations inside of that. So I like how you say you can go back and you can see your many changes along the way.
Yeah.
It really is true.
I love that. And I think too, one of the things you said was you get out of bed. That's step one, really, for a
Yeah.
lot of us sometimes. And it's scary here, but then it's not scary until you get to the desk. And then it's not scary. And one of the myths that I think we believe is that once I feel confident, I will go do X, right? And don't get me wrong, if you feel confident, sure, you're more likely to go do X.
Yes.
But the trick is that if you actually go do X before you feel confident, or before you feel whatever confident looks like, because I still think confident and bravery is a label that somebody else puts on us as opposed to how we feel.
I think so. Yep.
And
Yep.
if you go out and do those things, and yes, if you fall and you fail and you realize, but okay, I failed or I fell, but it didn't
Yep.
kill me. So
Correct.
let me keep going.
Yeah.
And you kind of put that step, that one step in front of another, as we always talk about. And then before you realize it, you look back and you realize, I didn't feel confident then, but I feel more confident now because of all that I've done. And now I'm
Absolutely
at a
true.
better place to go forward to do more because that it's not just that I'm waiting for confidence to make the change. I'm making a change and feeling more confident.
Absolutely. You know what that reminds me of? And I'm going to take it back to full circle to this dissertation that I have been working for an extended period of time. So, more than 5 years, more than 6 years. But I think what needed to happen was I needed to not feel so in it. So my
Mm,
dissertation is on HR is not your friend. Where has HR been in preventing workplace bullying? And so I've seen it from the employee side because it's
yeah.
happened. I've seen it from the HR side because I've tried to prevent it. And I think just getting away from that day to day to day trying to
Yeah.
deal with it was enough time for me to say, I've been away from it for a while. So now I can have much more of an objective perspective than I
Yes.
did several years ago. My
Yes.
dissertation chair used to say, it sounds like you're trying to prove something, and you're not trying to prove anything. You're just giving information for future studies. And I think I needed to be away from that situation for a while in order to say, I can look at this much more objectively now and say, HR didn't do this, or the employee didn't do that, or leadership doesn't do this. It's like I see the perspectives of all three in that
Oh, yeah.
triangle. And now I can say, now I can write. And I will tell you, probably in the last 6 months, I have gotten more accomplished than I had in, say, the past several years.
I
So
love that.
again, it goes back to that. Don't set a timeline for yourself. You can still set goals
Yeah.
and things like that, but don't say, I've been out of work or I've been away from this for a year. I should be here by now, because you're just
Mhm.
adding another pressure to yourself.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Nathalie, for going into the goo with me today. If people do want to find you for your fabulous coaching, and for all of you out there, she is a fabulous coach. If they do want to find you, how do they find you?
You can find me at www.nldcoaching.com, or you can find me on not Facebook, LinkedIn. Sorry about that. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Nathalie Lofton Davis on LinkedIn. That's LOFTON-Davis. And you can see Nathalie has an H in there. If you see my name down there, it does have a little H in there. So don't forget that. But if you search Nathalie Davis, you will find me on LinkedIn as well.
You will absolutely.
Thank you for letting me do that plug.
Oh, no, I love that. Oh, no, if people can, for all of you out here who are looking for change, you need to connect with Nathalie. So.
Be wonderful. Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you. And for those of you who are interested in checking out my book, you can go to my website. It's butterflygoobook.net. And the book is ready for pre-order, depending on when you see this, or it is out in the world and ready to be ordered and downloaded now. So,
yes, you won't regret it. It's fabulous.
Thank you, Nathalie.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.